Pardon the interruption. We'll be getting...
Our program continues with session 4. Fear, anger, love, and choosing with Ram Dass.
How can we use our emotions positively on our spiritual path? If you look at the practice of what's called devotional yoga, or bhakti yoga in Hindi, devotional yoga, you will see that you, for example, if your relationship is to, say, Christ, you could take a picture of Jesus and then think about the qualities of his life and the qualities of his compassion and the qualities of his beauty of being and the qualities of his reminding people about God. And you could look at that being and it would generate in you, if you allow it, emotional responses. These emotional responses are relational. They are warm human responses of love, of caring, of tenderness. Then if you stay with that picture of Jesus and keep being with Jesus, you will go beyond those into a deeper way of being with him, of just being with him in the presence sense. And that presence includes more and more of all of what is, all emotions all at once. But you go through the emotional doorway. You use your emotional heart as a vehicle to getting into that deeper way of being with God. Okay, that's one way. The other kinds of emotions that are generated, emotions like anger, sadness, joy, all of them, a whole range of them. What one cultivates is a spaciousness or an awareness that allows you to acknowledge the feelings, and it comes back to the word appreciating again. Acknowledge the feelings and allow them and see them as part of the human condition. They're all generated. They're like thought, they're subtle thought forms. Emotions are really subtle thought forms. They all arise in response to something. They're reactions that come. If somebody goes like that, you have a certain emotional response. If they go like that, you have a different response. If they go like that, you have a different response. And you can feel how reactive your emotions are to situations. They're all part of a lawful reactive domain that you're cultivating a quietness in yourself that just watches these things coming and going and arising and passing away. You learn not to act out your emotions, but just to appreciate and allow them. That's part of the way in which you use them spiritually. Spiritually, you don't act out your emotions. You just acknowledge them. You don't deny them, though. And I began to see there's the process of death, of the just seeing transformation of energy. And the deepest fear, of course, is the death, which is the extinction of that fragile little thing that we created in the first place. Because once you get back into the mystical root being, your true self, it doesn't die by that work on oneself. And that's different because if you are afraid because of that vulnerability and you keep focusing on what you're afraid of, like I'm afraid of heights, or I'm afraid of violence in the streets, or I'm afraid of this, you will keep substituting one after another. As you get rid of one, there'll be a whole new one to play with. Because it isn't really, you just pick one and then focus on it, but that isn't really what it's about. It's the fear itself from where you're standing. It's not the object, it's the subject that's the dealing with. If you design your life to keep tasting those mindful moments, the moments of spaciousness, after some time, as you contract, you feel the thickness and the unsatisfactoriness of the state. You don't even know why you've contracted. See, the tendency is when you contract to say, why did I contract? Was I angry? Was I tired? What was it? But you get to the point where you just treat the contraction or the kind of tightening or the closing down of the heart. You just treat it as what it is, and you immediately go into whatever method you have. See, that's why I hold these beads all the time. I mean, you must see me with these beads almost all the time. Now, a lot of the time, they're just completely unconscious. But when I start to feel heavy, I feel the beads in my finger now. I note the heaviness. The noting is the heaviness. And then instead of figuring out why am I heavy, which is just going to feed the whole issue, I know that that is not necessary to be in that state, that I've closed down. And I just want to come back into spaciousness. And then it's Ram, 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 and it's my guru going Ram, 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 and it's when you've invested in your method, because you know your method brings you out of those places, then you call upon your method at that moment, and you get so that it's an automatic process. It's almost automatic. It's mediated by one thought. It's I'm stuck, and then the next thing is Ram. It's interesting because I sleep often with my beads in my hand. And I will awake out of a dream, and I'm still in the dream, and I can feel the thickness of the dream. And I'll just feel the bead. The sensory input of the bead starts the Ram. And then I can feel the moment where the Ram is the spaciousness, and the dream is the contraction. And I'm right there, and I can feel there's a pull to stay in the contraction. And then the deeper commitment to being free